Welcome to the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Howdy, y'all.
A film critic and an artist talking about movies. A gay man and a straight man talking about movies. Can you believe it? We're so different, and yet we have all of the same opinions.
Well, that's true. Not always.
Not always. We tend to think alike, though. Which Bob tends to think like this. Isn't that fun? To find people who think like you?
Well, most of the time, if it's a difference in movies, I will allow it. But if you're insulting people that I care about or groups of people that I care about, then you can fuck off and get out of my house.
Amen. I don't care who you are. I do not care who you are. If they're doing that, forget it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's talk about. I wanted to briefly mention the passing of Kris Kristofferson, who, of course, was best known as a country and western singer in the 70s and 80s, and then, of course, moved into acting in the 70s. And the transition that Kris Kristofferson made into acting was rather incredible. He was just a natural. Something about his persona, where you're talking about. When he was in the A Star Is Born and then Semi-Tough are two flawed films, but he transitions into those performances incredibly well. And then you've got Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. He is playing this very complicated character who's got he's got anger issues, he's got He's deeply flawed, but Kristofferson doesn't try to make him anything more than he is. He doesn't try to. Nobody's trying to hide those flaws. Nobody's trying to. And there's the roughness of that character is so much perfectly played by a guy who doesn't know. He doesn't have any acting tics. He doesn't have any of the pretension of an actor. He's got the pretension of a performer. In terms of being a persona and a concert performer, but. That's more bravado than anything else, and it hides this sort of vulnerability that comes through in a guy who is a little bit insecure about whether or not he's capable of acting, and that really feeds into that role. And it really always impressed me. And then, of course, he over the years he just got more comfortable in front of the camera, and by the time he's doing Blade with Wesley Snipes. He's a natural again. He understands himself. He's got such a great presence. When people talk about Blade, they love talking about what a great counterpoint he is to the stoicism of Wesley Snipes' performance. What's your take on Kristofferson?
Well, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore is my second favorite role of his, and everything you said is just perfectly true about him in that movie. I did like him in Blade as well. I mean, nothing compares to his role in Dolphin Tale 2. But no, I'm just kidding. No, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore is my favorite of his performances.
You got his IMDb in front of you right now.
I looked at it the other day and I was just like, I didn't know he was in Dolphin Tale and Dolphin Tale 2. That's hilarious. He was actually my favorite part of the Blade movies, just his easygoing charm is something that any role he had, it was just that kind of, he just had a presence that wasn't threatening or overly macho or even a caricature of overly macho. Like sometimes, Sam Elliott.
Yeah,
he's a great guy. But he comes across as that kind of sometimes a caricature of what it means to be macho.
Yeah, it's like he cares. To the point where it's like he cares that he comes off that way.
Yeah, but Kris Kristofferson just had that easygoingness about him, and he was a really, really good guy. After Sinead O'Connor tore up the picture of the Pope, she went to perform at the Bob Dylan tribute concert and it was booed. and just kind of stood there. And he came out and talked her through it, and basically was just supporting her and supporting her right to say whatever she wanted. He was a big proponent for Palestine over the years. Just a really good person overall.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to unpretentious. He was deeply unpretentious to the point where he was doing an interview with Nathan Rabin years ago at the AV Club, and they were talking about Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and he actually said, "Yeah, who directed that?" Just completely. Oh yeah, Martin Scorsese. He was great to work with.
I mean, to be honest though, he did have a ton of credits as just an actor, much less
yeah, it was an interview 35 40 years after he made it.
Yeah,
it still came off as just a guy who doesn't hold anybody else above himself and is just not pretentious about his work.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people would be in awe of the fact that, oh my God, I worked with Martin Scorsese, and understandably so.
He did an uncredited role as himself in the last horror film with Carolyn Monroe and Joe Spinell.
No, I was not aware of that.
It's just a little cameo, but he was friends with David Winters, the director, and Joe Spinell. Joe Spinell was the Kevin Bacon of his time. I mean, he's just just the creepiest looking guy, but such a good guy and such a good actor that he knew everybody and was in so much stuff. So
weirdest thing, not to get off on a Joe Spinell tangent, but like I've just been looking at movies of the 1980s. I've been looking at this YouTube channel about movies of the 1980s, and Joe Spinell pops up in Curtis Hansen's first film in 1980, which is it's a movie that only opened in California, and it's about two little ninjas. Two little kid ninjas, and like Spinell's the bad guy who gets beat up. Like, how did that happen?
Again, Joe Spinell knew everybody. He was in so much. He was,
wasn't he also in Forbidden Zone that year? Was that?
I think so. He was in Cruising that year.
That's bizarre.
I'm just really quick. Maniac is what he's like best known for.
Right.
That's his signature role. But he was in Brubaker, Melvin and Howard, Nighthawks.
Melvin and Howard and Brubaker also came out in 1980. Where the fuck did he find the time?
So yeah, in 1980, he was in The First Deadly Sin, Melvin and Howard, Brubaker, Nightside, which is a TV movie, Maniac, Forbidden Zone, The Ninth Configuration, Cruising.
How? Yeah.
Because he loved to work. We should do a Joe Spinell classic or something sometime.
Next week, Maniac. All right, no.
I mean, it would go along with Joker.
Oh my God, we're totally doing it then.
Okay.
All right. Well, what a weird conversation. We like Chris Christopherson is the main thing. We didn't talk about Maggie Smith. There's what else what could you say about her? Exactly.
Gosford Park alone.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about Harry Potter because that's what all the kids know her as. Kids,
right?
They're all like 40 now. But like Evil Under the Sun is what I first remember her from. That's kind of the first role that I remember seeing her in because I liked a lot of the old Agatha Christie movies and whatever, and that was my first, I think, exposure to her when I was a kid. But Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, she was in Death on the Nile. She did a lot of those Agatha Christie. Oh, and she was in Murder by Death. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes. I saw it at A&E years ago.
Yeah, it's like a spoof of all the Agatha Christie locked door mystery ones. California Suite Do you remember that movie?
Oh, sure.
Sure. Yeah. She did so much stuff that, before she ever did Harry Potter, um, that it's hard. She's like Chris Christopherson. It's hard to nail down something, like what's your favorite Maggie Smith? Um, and to me, she was always 80 years old. Like once she hit 60, it was like, oh, is she 100 years old? How old is she? I think Hook On was like, she was 100 years old.
Yeah, she was one of those people who looked like she was 50 from birth.
Yeah. One thing I wish I could, one movie that I really liked, and I had it on VHS after I saw it in the theater, was Tea with Mussolini. Do you remember that movie?
Kind of.
It's not. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. You might be able to buy it on DVD somewhere, but it was a really good movie, and Cher was amazing in it. Cher and Judi Dench, Maggie Smith, Lily Tomlin was in it too. And I saw it in the theater and I really liked it. And that was one I wish we could revisit, but it's so hard to find. It's like not streaming anywhere.
There's so many of those movies from that time period that they're not considered lost media because we know exactly where they are. They're just not. People like David Zaslav don't want to put them online. People like him. I'm not accusing him of holding back any particular movie, but people like him just don't see the value in having, making things available.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we have to talk about new movies. Well, and actually, you know what? I'm not going to be as grumpy this week as I've often been accused. So I've got a lot of nice things to say this week. Specifically starting with My Old Ass, starring Aubrey Plaza, and just this brilliant young woman, this young star of this film. She is truly deserving to be a movie star. As I struggle to recall, I've got it right here. Her name is Maisy Stella, and she is absolutely exceptional. She just lights up the screen. She's got her own energy, which in this day and age really stands out. It reminded me of seeing Florence Pugh for the first time, or seeing Aubrey Plaza for that matter for the first time. Just seeing an actor who has that kind of immediate presence that you're just drawn to. The idea here is that Elliott, Maisy Stella, has just turned 18 years old. She's getting ready to leave for college in Toronto. She's leaving behind her family's farm, and she's going to spend her 18th birthday with her two best friends, taking mushrooms in a forest nearby and camping. And while her friends are off, running around the forest having their own trip, her trip involves being visited by her 39-year-old self, played by Aubrey Plaza. And the two have a conversation about their lives, and the older Elliott giving the younger Elliott some advice about what she should do to maybe improve their lives, but also she's concerned, she doesn't want her to change too much because life isn't that bad. But there's a couple of pieces of advice that she gives, which is the first to be nicer to her mom, and then to spend time with her younger brothers. And then the third thing is to not get involved with a guy named Chad. And the next day, she meets Chad. And Chad, played by Percy Hines White, is a very sweet, very charming guy who you can't imagine what possible reason Aubrey Plaza would have to say stay away from him, because everything about him is just completely charming. The main problem for young Elliott is that she's convinced of who she is. She's into girls, but then she meets this boy, and now she's kind of rethinking her entire life, and they begin kind of a whirlwind romance, even though, again, her older self said to stay away from him, and that's building towards revealing why that is. And that's really kind of the rest of the plot will come from that. This movie is wonderful. It's very, very funny. Megan Park directs this with a great deal of charm. It's it unfolds. It's got some lovely photography, but again, it's warm and funny and smart, and a tremendous lead performance by Maisy Stella, who I think is just going to be an absolute superstar.
Good to know. I really did want to see it. I just I had like I said last week, I had a show this weekend, so getting to the theater was interesting.
Yeah.
And I could only see one movie yesterday and one movie today. So
Well, we'll get to the other one that you saw. You saw two in a moment. I do want to throw a mention out for the movie Lee, which fell into theaters this weekend, tripped over and fell off the face of the planet. Nobody went to see this movie. It's directed by Ellen Kuras and starring Kate Winslet in the role of Lee Miller, famed photographer for Vogue, who captured some of the most iconic and memorable images of World War II, and she did so at a time when women weren't allowed to be where she was, but she made it happen. Lee Miller, of course, came back to public consciousness earlier this year because there was a lot of talk about Lee Miller in the movie Civil War. Kirsten Dunst's character claimed her as an influence, as did Kaylee Spaney's character. Her name gets dropped a couple times during that movie, and it's because back in the late 1930s, as Lee Miller was transitioning out of being a model and into being a photographer, she was in Europe as World War II is just getting started, and she gets married and moves to England, and just as the Blitz is happening, she's getting into photography and getting to get the chance to take part in creating sort of the image of England in that time when, during the Blitz. So taking photos that are, reassuring people that England's going to be okay, but that's not enough for her. She wants to be on the front line. So she can't get there via England. She has to get there through the United States. The United States will let a woman to go to the front, but the English will not. And so she hooks up with David Sherman, played by Andy Samberg. They become essentially photography partners. They head off to the front lines, and they get all the way to right into Adolf Hitler's mansion is how far this will take you. And then, of course, to eventually filming, taking pictures of Auschwitz and the various different places of the Holocaust. And it's a powerful film. Kate Winslet is incredibly good in it. So you've got some tremendous supporting performances by Andrea Riseborough, Marion Cotillard, and Josh O'Connor from Challengers has a very important role as a character who is providing the front and back of the story. He's providing the context for the story. He's interviewing Lee Miller about her career, and it's part of what brought Lee Miller from being kind of buried in her time to being brought back to become who she is today, this well-respected photographer and absolute legend. For a long time, her work was seemingly lost until it was brought back by members of her family. Again, an incredibly well-told story. I loved the chemistry between Kate Winslet and Josh O'Connor. Their back and forths are tremendous. And then Andy Samberg is surprisingly good as well. This is quite a good movie.
Nice. Yeah, it looked interesting. I was at the Davis Theater for the Massacre on Saturday, and I was sitting near a poster for it and was like, oh, is that out? And then I looked it up and I'm like, oh, that actually looks really good. I was going to try to see it, but
they did a terrible job of marketing this movie.
Yeah,
just a god awful job of telling people that this movie was out there. I don't know what the release plan was or what the marketing plan was. They spent $30 million to make a movie that they didn't bother to tell people was coming out.
I guess they're thinking it's somehow going to bring people to streaming.
I don't know. I truly have no idea. This is a movie that they could be part of the Oscar conversation if they wanted it to be. I mean, with Kate Winslet in the cast, with Marion Cotillard, Andrea Riseborough. Like, come on, it's ridiculous. This ridiculous cast, and you're not. Why they didn't bother to market this movie or tell anybody that it's out is baffling to me, because this is quite a good movie.
Nice. Yeah, I will eventually see it. Although I have to say this: I did make the decision after talking to so many people about The Substance this weekend that, unlike you, I am going to go see it in the theater again at least one more time.
Well, you enjoy that.
Well, I would. Now, this is something too that, bringing up Lee and the fact that I want to see that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Since I've been on the show, it's very rare that I go see a movie just for the pleasure of seeing.
Yeah.
And because you're talking about Lee, that means that I can go see it and not have to, I can just go see it. The same with seeing The Substance again. I've only seen a couple movies more than once in the theater this year. And Maxine was one of them, of course, because, in The Substance, I don't know which is my favorite of the year between those two. So
it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. I didn't come to my choice of The Substance easily, because Maxine is incredible, but yeah, I also I could not possibly sit through The Substance again. I love it. It's the best movie of the year. I'm not going to see it again. Let's talk about Azrael. Azrael's a new horror film from Shudder and IFC. It stars Samara Weaving as the main character, Azrael, and this is quite an experiment. This is a horror film. It's a movie with no talking. People don't talk. One character does, but not an important character. The main characters do not speak in this movie, which is, again, like I said, quite a challenge. But I think the movie really pulls it off. This is a chase movie. It's a revenge film. It's a monster movie, all rolled up into one. The Samara Weaving's character is hanging out in the forest with her boyfriend, played by Nathan Stewart-Jarrett. We only know that because they just share a little bit of intimacy, physical intimacy, and then they are pulled apart. This gang comes through, two different gangs maybe, or just one gang, it seems, pulls them apart, takes them off into different parts of the forest, and seemingly each is about to be sacrificed to these monsters that look like people who've been burned alive in a fire. These monsters eat people, drink their blood. It's all very gory and gross. And Samara Weaving is able to escape and go looking for Nathan Stewart-Jarrett. And on the way, she will be facing down Katarina Unt as Josephine. Again, we only know this because, I'm only know this because I'm reading the Wikipedia, because, again, no dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's a really impressive feat to be able to make a movie like this in this day and age, and to be even allowed to make a movie like this is kind of miraculous, because studios don't tend to like to take very many chances. This is the director of Cheap Thrills and ABCs of Death 2, an interesting eclectic lineup of films there. I know. Bob talked about the movie Cheap Thrills as one he liked on this show several years back. I've not seen it, but like I said, Bob did find something great about that. I really liked this. I was really impressed. I didn't think as the movie went on and there was no one speaking, I was like, I'm not sure about this. And then once I saw the monsters, I guess I was kind of convinced. I was convinced because I think the monster design here, for as minimalist as it is, I thought the monsters were kind of cool.
Yeah, they looked like they were just burned zombies, and I really, really liked that. And the way they moved was very natural, not not sped up or anything like that. It was very, very effective. And at first, I thought it was just one.
Yeah.
I thought it was some sort of god that they were sacrificing, and then maybe that was who Azrael was. But until I looked at the cast list and stuff, I didn't realize that was that Samara Weaving was playing Azrael.
Right? Exactly. I had no idea. I truly had just no clue who anyone was. I know her face. I know her from was it Ready or Not? I know her, so I know her, and I knew she was going to be the main character. But beyond that, I mean, without any dialogue, it's fascinating to think just how much of a role dialogue plays in movies to provide various contexts. But this is all done visually, and it's very impressively done visually. I also like that this movie this is a very grim movie, but it doesn't feel overly grim. Like a lot of times when it comes to movies like this, I often feel like it's just so grim that I don't think that the main character has really any chance of surviving. It becomes oppressive, and I don't feel like this movie ever became oppressive like that. And I did feel, even though we have got no basis for it, it felt organic to me, the way that she sort of goes from being their victim to being the person who is hunting them and taking revenge.
Yeah, this is the second Samara Weaving movie where she does that. And it's covered in blood while doing so. I mean, I was like, wait a minute, is this like a sequel to Ready or Not, or what?
If that universe like had an immediate, like, descended into immediate dystopia, that that could be this movie. I mean, when you consider, that this character having her voice taken away, and I mean, that movie was kind of about the patriarchy in that way. There's kind of a theming going on for sure.
You are not wrong.
The characters in this movie can, or maybe they could at one point, talk. I know Samara Weaving's character demonstrates that she has like a scar on her throat that seemingly indicates that her voice was taken from her. But I mean, one character speaks, and he's a guy who speaks Spanish, and they don't subtitle that.
Yeah.
So they completely leaving much of the audience, some of the audience out of the ability to understand what's happening there. But this universe is so unique, though. Like it's a forest setting, but then there are people who have cars, and because it's a forest setting, they don't use the cars much. They use them, for very specific purposes. But again, this is essentially either a time in the near immediate future or existing right now, where for some reason people's voices have been taken away. And seemingly the world, as we know it, has come to an end. But some aspects of that remain.
Yeah. I think that it's probably, it seems like maybe this is just a religious sect that has done this, because the other, I think that they're maybe seen as dangerous in the outside world because the guy who is driving the truck has lights all around the truck,
right?
So he can see in every direction at night.
Doesn't help him much, but yeah.
Well, yeah. But I got the impression that they were a religious sect in that part of wherever they are, and that was he realized that they were there, so that's when she was when he picked her up, he realized that she was escaping, and that's why he tried to help her. So,
I mean, yeah, just context clues. You can read that into it. And then, of course, this all builds to a baby reveal, which is becoming one of my favorite horror movie reveals. The monster reveal at the end, it's like it was, you've got it in The Substance, obviously. You've got it in a couple other movies we talked about this year. This may be the trend of the year.
I'm glad that they showed it instead of, just alluding to it, because yes, there is something to be said for illusion of, to what's under the sheet or behind the wall or whatever, and us having to make up our own minds and whatever it is. But sometimes you just want to see the monster.
Yeah, and you do get to see it, and it leads, but all it does is lead you to more questions like how, why, what was the overall point? What was this church in this forest with this pregnant woman? How did she get pregnant with this monstrosity? How did she, did she believe it was a good thing or a bad thing? What's behind the wall that is how did, none of those questions are going to be answered. You just have to accept that none of those questions are getting answered. And yet it still remains pretty effective.
Yeah, I didn't what I got that maybe she thought she was being impregnated by, the second coming of Jesus, and instead it was like, fooled you, got your nose. Not got your nose, got your womb.
It was Satan after all. My headcanon is, as I was watching the movie, was that this church, maybe it was rebuilt after it had been burned down by the people who, like these people who are now there. I was thinking maybe they burned down the previous church with the people inside and took it, and those monsters in the forest are those people whose souls cannot rest after being murdered inside of their church.
Oh yeah.
It's just a theory. Again, the movie has no way to tell you if that has any kind of bearing or validity. All we know is that Samara Weaving's character was wronged, and she turned around and she went back and she started killing folk.
Yep.
And there are
that
monsters.
She did.
I was sad that we didn't get more of Nathan Stewart-Jarrett. That guy, again, is always a welcome presence when I see him. He's in a lot of very independent films. He doesn't get much mainstream work, but anytime I've seen him do anything, he's been pretty great. And I was excited to see him, and then he just disappeared.
He came back for a while.
For a moment. not long enough. I would have liked to see more of him, but yeah, I do like this movie a lot. I do recommend it. It's another good horror movie this year, Jeff.
We've only had a couple bad horror movies this year. I am so happy.
It has been really like the MVP genre of the year is horror. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Not looking at you, Night Swim.
Yeah, no.
That's so far that is in my top. That's the top of my worst movies of the year. So,
all right.
Yeah,
so that's
eating on horror.
So that is that's actually a good introduction to our next movie and the final new movie of the week, because this is not your on the top of your worst of the year list. It's Megalopolis from director Francis Ford Coppola, starring Adam Driver and Giancarlo Esposito, along with Natalie Emmanuel and a cast of thousands. A $120 million production that was funded entirely by Francis Ford Coppola himself, because this was the vision that he had. He's always wanted to make this, and he wants to start a conversation about America, comparing America and Rome, and he has something to say. It's just not quite clear what.
Does he even know?
So Adam Driver plays a character named Caesar Catalina. He is the chief designer for the city of New Rome, which is basically just New York, crossed with Rome. And he's a visionary.
But don't you see? It's the fall of Rome.
Did you feel like Francis Ford Coppola was just kind of nudging you the entire movie? See, it's Rome. You get it? You get it? Rome. You see? Rome fell. You remember? Rome fell? but also Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand.
Oh God! Slap me! It's like slapping you in the face with a copy of the Fountainhead. Do you remember how I described this movie to you yesterday?
Something about a K-hole.
Are you familiar with the playwright Christopher Durang?
Vaguely.
He wrote Beyond Therapy and Baby with the Bathwater. I was involved in a couple of his plays in college. I actually played Nana, the female nanny in Baby with the Bathwater. but he does these like slapstick, really weird, out there kind of plays, but the delivery in them is um, very much like Megalopolis. I said if Christopher Durang had adapted the Fountainhead and it was directed by John Waters in the middle of a K-hole, that would be the Megalopolis. it's uh, the line delivery in this movie is it is like it's like seventh grade drama club level in some spots.
You know that guy you went to college with who was just overly serious about everything? That's Adam Driver in this movie. He's just so serious about everything. Like he's the archetype of the great man. And he's got a beautiful woman who's inspired. Beautiful women inspire him to do great things. And you've got he's the chief designer of the city, and he's created this thing that allows him to create a new city. So he's starting to clear out city blocks, and he's being accused of various different things because he's clearing out city blocks so he can create this brand new city called Megalopolis that he says is going to be the city of the future, self-sustaining and room for everybody, and it's going to improve everybody's lives and so on and so forth. Giancarlo Esposito is the mayor of New Rome. He's opposed to Catalina's plan because he believes that he's mortgaging the present to try and get to the future. And this kind of provides an opening for Catalina's cousin, played by Shia LaBeouf, to start this sort of populist, like Trump-like movement of morons. He's convincing a lot of very poor people that Catalina is doing all these things at their expense as opposed to being at their benefit. And so he's leading them against him, using, the same kind of tactics that Trump tends to do, lying, obfuscating, and generally making shit up. And using a lot of money to do it because his father, played by Jon Voight, is the owner of the bank. But Jon Voight also happens to be a big fan of Catalina. So he's he's definitely bigging up Adam Driver's character while being taken advantage of by Shia LaBeouf's character, as well as another character played by Aubrey Plaza, who, quite the weekend she's having. A very, very good movie. And this, she plays a character named Wow Platinum. I think it was Alonzo Duralde. No, it was Mark Kermode said only an 88-year-old man could come up with the name Wow Platinum. But yeah, that's her character name. She's a parody of financial influencers. I guess Coppola really doesn't like Maria Bartiromo or something. I don't know.
Well, to be fair, nobody really does
That's
anymore.
True. He's going to take her down a peg, and all influencers, because she's this duplicitous character who is sleeping with Catalina and then immediately starts sleeping with Jon Voight to try and get his bank money after Catalina won't marry her. And really, that's just par for the course for how he treats all the women in this movie, aside from Natalie Manuel, who's the angel who the muse who inspires the great man to do great things. Because Lord knows women can't be inspired to do things. I get it. This is a specific story about the man. Calm down. I'm making a joke as I talk down to the audience, like I'm Coppola, honestly.
Ooh.
This there's like a whole subplot about like a Britney Spears style character by way of Taylor Swift, who is this beloved virgin character. And of course, the obvious twist is that, oh no, she's not really a virgin. She's been fucking people.
And she's 23 years old. She's not 14.
Oh, what the hell? Oh, and it's terrible. Who the fuck cares? Why is this here? What is this doing for the rest of the plot? Nothing. Remove that. It changes nothing. Why do people keep doing this? Why do you keep going down these fucking rabbit holes in your stupid movies where you're adding in plots that you don't fucking need and that are not particularly entertaining, and they don't move your plot forward. There's a whole that bullshit plus the drug trip. There's like this 15-minute drug trip that Adam Driver goes on in the midst of this, Roman bacchanal at the Madison Square Garden, because I guess that's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, God, I didn't like almost. They were very like the visuals in this were fine. Okay, they're fine. However, they don't make up for the shitty story or lack thereof. That's what got me was that there's nothing cohesive about it that couldn't be told in like a half-hour episode of television.
Mm-hmm.
It's we get it. This is like he's an industrialist that doesn't, who has a vision and is supposed to be some sort of, whiz kid who never does anything wrong, but he's repellent. Everybody in this movie, with the exception of like Catherine Hunter, is repellent. I just love her. That she was the only part of the front room I liked. But yeah, that was like what I heard all weekend was how bad this was. I'm like, surely it can't be that bad. It can't. It just can't. And then I was sitting there within 15 minutes. I was like, oh, this is the Fountainhead. This is just no.
I saw it more as Atlas Shrugged, where you've got the government coming down against the great man with a vision and trying to stop him from creating his great vision. But Coppola is not like. There's this weird thing about the way you can interpret like Ayn Rand's work. Like she definitely was on the right side of the spectrum, I guess, if you will. But there are ways that like liberals have tried to reclaim what she does, and I think there's an element of Coppola trying to do that, but he doesn't quite understand what he's doing in doing that. He's bigging up her philosophy as opposed to deconstructing it, or at the very least rerouting it to something that is more I don't know, acceptable. Because he's an old man who still sees women a particular way and can't get out of his own way in that way. He's very set in his ways in that way. At the same time, I can't completely hate this because it is an entirely original vision. Like he's doing something very original, very bold. It is a bold idea that he's trying here and failing at so badly. It's poignant to watch somebody reach so far and fall so short. I have to commend aspects of this. Like I said, some of the movie looks really, really good. Some of it doesn't. He makes a lot of big choices, but not all of them are good choices. He both has a sense of humor and doesn't have a sense of humor in the same scene. There's a scene. There's a scene late in the movie where Jon Voight is seemingly dying, and he's drawn Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza there. They've been conspiring against him to steal the bank, and he gets one up on him by killing one of them and then shooting the other in the ass. And we're supposed to, I guess, laugh at one of those and be shocked by the other one, and it's just this tonal whiplash, on top of which Voight's performance is just outright embarrassing. Like I just want to send him home. He looks tired.
Well, he's doing Donald Trump. He's even doing the voice at the beginning. I was like, am I high, or is he doing Donald Trump? I mean, I know he would like to do Donald Trump, but
well, that's what makes it weird, though, is because he's a Trump guy, so he can't be participating in something that would be against that. Like he's not here to parody Trump, so I don't understand I'm not sure what the point of the character or that was, and especially since Shia LaBeouf is much more of the what Coppola sees of what Trump does, which I think at the very least, there is a very obvious like critique of that going on with as bad as Shia LaBeouf's performance is. He is awful. He is borderline unwatchable in this movie. But I got what they were going for. Despite everything else that they do with that character,
Yeah.
I got what they were trying to do. It's just such it's that kind of both sidesism where you don't want to openly critique the right, but you want to get those jabs in that will land with the liberal crowd, I guess.
Well, part of it for me is he's just repellent in this movie. I mean, he is so every scene he's in, he's just gross. And I know that that's like his shtick, but I just every time he was on, I'm like, this is what I see when you know who comes on screen.
Yeah.
So
it's just such it's a mess. It's a mess. I mean, the best way to put it is that this movie is a mess. There are a lot of big ideas and a lot of big swings going on, but in the end, what means anything when you created this much of a mess?
Yeah. Just I was sitting there the whole time, and there was only like 5 people in the theater, and I'm like, could I just maybe leave and pretend I saw the movie? And then you were like, no, you have to see for the show. So I felt bad about wanting to leave. Well, I didn't feel bad about wanting to leave.
Yeah.
But I felt a lot worse watching it than I did about wanting to leave.
Is this among the worst of the year for you?
Yes.
I get it. Like I said,
I mean,
I don't know if I don't know if I'm having just sympathy for Coppola or not. I think probably a lot of it is just residual care for his other movies and what he's given to movies over the years. I can't completely hate this. I don't like it, and I think it's got some very obvious flaws, but I do have a kind of an admiration at the very least for how it was for being made at all.
I mean, I know he's wanted to do it forever, and good for him and getting it done, but it's like nobody told him. Nobody loved him enough to say, Frank, come on, let it go.
Yeah. The green screen technology has democratized movies maybe far too much, actually. I heard that he's actually given up portions of his wine company.
You gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
To make this and lose all of this money.
Yeah.
Which is sad. It's sad. There's just no other way to put it. That's sad to hear. Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. That's a sad thing that happened. He's not going to make money on this. And I don't know how you bounce back from this at his age.
Yeah, I have no idea, because if this is the last thing that he ever does, and I have a feeling it will be, because he'll be so disillusioned, and that sounds terrible. But just the fact that so many people are dunking on this movie, and rightfully.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's, high art or anything. But the fact that people just hate it, like actively hate it, is kind of sad, because I mean, this is a guy who gave us so many good movies.
Right. I mean,
but
I adore so many things about him. Like, people were telling him this about One from the Heart, and years later, I fully believe that he has been proven right about One from the Heart, and that it was this fabulous creation that it is this incredible visionary film. I do think I love that movie, and as deeply flawed as that movie is, I fucking love that movie. So I don't see that for Megalopolis. I don't see Megalopolis being redeemed in the future. I think it's a lost cause, but at the same time, I can't help but admiring just how much this guy takes chances.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, go ahead.
Yeah. I good for him in getting something that he's always wanted. That's like, but reading some of the people who are up for roles and things like that, it made me happy for those people that they never got the chance to do something that's terrible.
Yeah,
for whatever that's.
I had heard a thing, and I don't know if this is true or not, that he had sought out people who had been quote unquote canceled to be in the movie, and that kind of just that rubbed me the wrong way right away. But then I'm looking at it going, when did Adam Driver get canceled? I don't remember that, or Natalie Emanuel, or Giancarlo Esposito. These appear to be people who people like and respect, but then you do get like Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight and Shia LaBeouf. So maybe there is something to that.
I mean, I
don't think Aubrey Plaza has been canceled as far as I know.
No, she's flourishing.
She's awesome. And really not terrible in this movie. She escapes this with her dignity intact. How anybody goes forward hiring Shia LaBeouf, I have no idea. It's embarrassing now. It's embarrassing now. I believe at one point in his life he could act, but taken off the leash and just given free reign to do whatever the fuck he wanted, which is apparently how Coppola decided to direct a lot of this, was just letting people go and kind of come up with their ideas on the day and run with it. If these are his ideas, maybe don't ever do that again.
Yeah.
I don't know. And you can kind of sense it, like in the scene. There's a scene early on where Adam Driver just launches into Hamlet, and you're kind of like, oh, I'm wondering if maybe he just decided this would be fun for this scene.
I've always wanted to do Hamlet. Let's try it here.
Let's just throw it in here and see what happens. See if there's part of me that kind of admires that scene. It's almost like somebody in the midst of an argument decides to go Shakespeare and see if anybody will jump in with him, like a Shakespeare jam. Which is a great idea. That's a great idea. If you're like you got a big group of people around and you just launch into a soliloquy, hoping that other people will jump in and pick up the other characters. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's something there. That just sounds like fun. If this movie had that kind of spirit, I would love this movie, but it doesn't. Instead, in this movie, it just feels like, what the fuck is going on?
Exactly.
It's just another idea. Adam Driver performs it well, but again, why? Actions need motivation.
There's no reason to do that.
Let's see. We've got our classic this week is The Conversation. This is another Francis Ford Coppola movie, throwing it back to 1974, starring Gene Hackman as Harry Call. His job is to take pictures and listen to people and take those pictures and the audio recordings and give them to his clients, who then can act on those. In this case, he's been hired by somebody to spy on a man's wife and find out if she's having an affair. And Harry is ready to just go in and do his job and not interested in, the whys and the hows and what these conversations are about. John Cazale is his assistant, and he is kind of interested. He kind of wants to know what this stuff is all about. And he kind of puts the bug in Harry's ear, as Harry is, he doesn't want to listen to it, but it's going to come back to him as he's listening to these conversations. And he hears one line from this conversation, like, he'd kill us if he knew. and he interprets this as if he gives this recording of this to his client, the client may kill these two people that he's spying on. And he's missing sort of something very key. And what he's missing is this brilliant sort of multi-layered thing, because it's on, there's a surface level thing that he's missing, but then there's this human element that is just a flaw in Harry Caul as a person, that he doesn't really get to know people, that he lives in this sort of constantly paranoid state, that he tries to stay completely withdrawn from people out of, for various different reasons. It causes him to miss the way that this one line is said. He misses the way it's said, as opposed to that it is said. And that being kind of a central, turning point for the movie is just fascinating. Hackman plays this so brilliantly. You're watching this man, this character evolve from this very buttoned down professional to a man who's, kind of unraveling as he seems to develop a conscience for the very first time. It is incredible to watch.
Yeah, I watched this a couple months ago. I thought we were doing it for the show, but it must have just been for myself. And the performance by Gene Hackman is what makes me that was what drove me to finish the movie, because to me it was kind of a more of a character study as I was watching it, but he was such an interesting person on screen that I had to I think I watched it twice, just to pick up on the nuances and stuff. When he gets home and his landlady or his neighbor had basically just broken into his apartment. That kind of told me a lot of stuff that I wanted to know,
Mm-hmm.
about him, about the fact that he was so private and so kind of insulted by other people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I really I picked up on right away, and how he uses that throughout the movie to kind of justify the things that he has to do.
I love the idea too that when it comes to his paranoia comes from his job. Yeah, because he starts to think that, well, I'm listening to people. Some people must maybe listening to me. And that thing gets inside of his head. It burrows into his mind, and watching that happen is fascinating. The idea that this man who is, taking advantage of people who aren't paranoid enough to hide things. He's taking advantage of them, and then it sort of the idea is sort of just planted in his mind suddenly that, oh, people could be listening to me.
Yeah, the most paranoid people are always the people who are the projecting, they're projecting all their own stuff on each other. So
An incredible performance and exceptionally well directed by Coppola here, who goes, it's very minimalist compared to everything else that he's done. It's a muted direction in so many ways. It's a great looking movie, and it's got a lot of there are plenty of cool visual stuff, but he's not being showy or big. He directed this in between the two Godfather movies. And this is obviously a much, much smaller film, and it keeps it much more intimate and much more focused on this specific character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have, Coppola not doing something that is about 50 different characters.
Mm-hmm.
He has to concentrate on one character, and I think it's very, very welcome change.
This is kind of like the proof of concept on his overall talent in many ways. Because it shows that he can do just about anything. If he can direct two Godfather movies and have this in between, and then direct Apocalypse Now. There really isn't any, and then One from the Heart. Like, there's nothing this man cannot do when making a movie. He's just dynamic, and and it's just such a shame that he ends his career on Megalopolis. and now I've made myself sad.
Sad.
You know what? The main recommendation, if you could take anything away from this week's show, is that go see One from the Heart.
And Azrael.
Yeah. Maybe The Godfather. Or Godfather 2 for that matter. Remember the good times, and let's not remember Megalopolis.
Exactly.
Any final thoughts, Jeff?
If you are in the Shelbyville, Indiana area, come and see me this weekend. I'll be at the Drive-In Massacre. There's going to be some amazing movies happening at the Drive-In this weekend. $30 for both days. You can camp. All sorts of good stuff. So My Bloody Valentine, Serial Mom, you name it.